the egrets usually feed or forage close to wherever the cattle are grazing. If it stays in between the sea anemone, the clownfishes are first of all very small and they're very brightly colored. So they will fall prey to the other large fishes. In the form of carbohydrates, the plant provides the nutrition to the mycorrhiza. And in turn, the mycorrhiza also helps the plant in absorbing nutrients. If nectar is not there, obviously the orchid will not provide any food for the insects. So why will they come and visit? Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another session of chapter 13, which is the last session of this chapter of second PUC, that is Organisms and Population. I'm Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about the population interaction, wherein we learned about competition and parasitism. In today's session, we shall discuss about mutualism and commensalism. So to begin with, what is commensalism? So commensalism is nothing but the interaction between one species and another species, wherein one species gets the benefit, whereas the other species will neither be benefited nor it will be detrimental to that particular species. So here the effective positive as well as zero. Zero means it is neutral. So one species will get the benefits from another species, but that particular species, when it is taking the benefit from the other species on which it is depending on, it will not harm that other species. Now the other species will derive any benefit from the species that is growing on it. So the best example that we can take of here is an orchid, which is an epiphyte growing on a mango tree. So there are a lot of epiphytes, right? Not just these orchids, but there are certain drynerias which belongs to the pteridophytes. So all these are the epiphytes. So these epiphytes can be found growing in the humus pockets of the trees. So in the humus pockets, they derive the nutrition from the humus pockets of the trees and they grow, therefore taking benefit from the tree. But in turn, these epiphytes, they will not cause any harm to the tree, nor they will provide any benefit to the tree. So that is called as commensalism. So again here there is one more example we can take of is the barnacles growing on the back of a whale. You can see here barnacles, they are growing on the back of or the body of the whale, wherein they are making use of the space that is available in the whale, but in turn they are not providing any benefit to the whale nor they are causing any harm to the whale. So these are some of the important examples that we can take for commensalism. So in commensalism, there is also one of the most common examples that we can consider. So whoever is living in a village or whenever you're traveling, you might have seen in the cows or the cattle grazing in the crop field or grazing in the field, right? So near these, wherever these cows are grazing, you can see the egrets around them, right? So these are the egret birds. So you can see the egret birds around them. So why are the egret birds always seen around the cow? It is because the cows, when they are feeding on the grass, they will disturb the grass. So at that moment, what happens? Whatever insects, the grasshoppers, the locusts, or any insects that is being camouflaged in the grass will start to hop out from the grass, right? So when it tries to hop out, immediately the egrets who are there near the cow, they will catch hold of those insects and they will feed them. So that is how they derive the benefit. So here the cattle egret and grazing cattle in a close association is one of the best classical examples to talk about commensalism. So the egrets usually feed or forage close to wherever the cattle are grazing, because as the cattle are moving, as they are stirring their tail and all that, these insects that are camouflaged in the grass, they'll become visible to the egrets so that the egrets can feed on them. Otherwise, what will happen if because of the camouflage, say for example, a grasshopper is there in between, that is in the grass, it is almost same as the color of the grass. The egrets will not be able to find out. Now when it starts, as the cow goes on grazing, as the grasshopper starts to hop from the grass, the egrets can easily catch these grasshoppers, therefore they can feed on them. So here This is one of the best example because here the egrets are deriving benefit from the cow, right? But the cow in turn is not deriving any benefit from the egret. So this is one of the best example for commensalism. So next, talking about one more example. Here it is the interaction between the sea anemone and the clownfish. So sea anemones, usually they have tentacles which have stings on them. So these stinging tentacles which are present in the sea anemone protects the clownfish. How? You might have seen, so the best example that we can take of is the cartoon that you might have watched, the cartoon Nemo, right? Wherein Nemo is a clownfish who always prefers to stay amidst the sea anemone. So why these clownfishes, not just in cartoons but also in nature, actually the clownfishes always prefer to stay wherever the sea anemones are. So that if it stays in between the sea anemone, the clownfishes are first of all very small and they're very brightly colored. So they will fall prey to the other large fishes. So in order to prevent that, they go amidst the sea anemone because the tentacles of the sea anemone will prevent the other fishes from reaching the clownfish. So that is how they live among the sea anemone. So the fish, it gets protection from the predators which stay away from the stinging tentacles of the sea anemone. So the anemone does not appear to derive any benefits from the clownfish, but the clownfish is deriving benefit from the sea anemone, that is the benefit of protection. And neither the clownfish is causing any harm to the sea anemone. So therefore, this also is one of the best example for the commensalism. So next, talking about mutualism. So mutualism is nothing but here also the interaction is between two species wherein both the species are benefited. So this is called as mutualism. So the best example that we can take of is the symbiotic association of lichens with fungus and the cyanobacteria or the photosynthetic algae. So wherever the lichens are present, there you can find the growth of the algae, which is the cyanobacteria, as well as the fungi. So here the lichen, you can see they grow like leaves covering the algae and the fungi which are growing below it, therefore offering protection to them. And in turn, the lichens derive nutrition from the fungi and the algae. And the fungi also derives nutrition from the algae. So this is how they symbiotically associate with each other. So all the three are getting benefited here. That is the fungi, the lichens as well as the algae. All the three are getting benefited. So that is how this is one of the best examples to explain mutualism. That is the symbiotic association between the lichen, the fungi and the green algae, that is the blue-green algae, that is the cyanobacteria. So next, talking about one more example, it is the association or the mycorrhizal association between the mycorrhizal fungi and the plant. Here, the mycorrhiza helps the plant to absorb large amounts of nutrition which the plant alone cannot. And also the mycorrhiza in turn uses the plant to reside on the plant and also to feed on the nutrition, to some amount of nutrition from the plant. So here, though it is feeding on the nutrition of the plant, it doesn't cause harm to the plant. Why? Because it will feed on the excess of nutrition, but on the other hand, it will help the plant to take up the nutrition, therefore promoting the complete growth of the plant. So the mycorrhizae are associations between fungi and the roots of higher plants. So this particular fungi, that is mycorrhizum, they help the plant in the absorption of some of the essential nutrients from the soil, and the plant in turn provides the fungi with energy yielding carbohydrates. So in the form of carbohydrates, the plant provides the nutrition to the mycorrhiza, and in turn the mycorrhiza also helps the plant in absorbing nutrients. So the best example I can take here is that plants usually cannot absorb phosphorus on its own to a larger extent. So if it gets associated with the plant roots, it will help the plant roots to absorb maximum amount of phosphorus, which the plant roots alone without the help of mycorrhiza cannot do that. So that is how both gets benefited here. The mycorrhiza also gets benefited because the plants provides carbohydrates to the mycorrhiza, and the plant is also benefited because the mycorrhiza helps the plant to absorb enough amount of nutrients from the soil, therefore promoting the overall growth and development of that particular plant. So these two are some of the best examples for mutualism. So next, talking about mutualism. So in mutualism, there is some important or most fascinating examples that we can take of, that is the plant-animal relationship. So the best example that comes to our mind when we talk about mutualism, wherein we take the example of plant-animal relationship, is between the plants and the bees, right? So bees are one of the major pollinators that are there. So here the plants take the benefits of the bee for the dispersal of the pollen grains, therefore promoting setting of the seeds. And in turn, if the plant has to take this help from the bees, it has to offer some gifts or rewards or fees to the bees, right? So what do these plants do? So the plants actually give the reward in the form of nectar. So here, plants need the help of animals for pollinating the flowers and dispersing their seeds. Even for seed dispersal also, the animals are required, because there are some plant seeds which can germinate only if they pass through the gut of the animals. So because the acidic content in the gut of that particular animal in that level that it is able to degrade the hard seed coat of some of the seeds, therefore once it passes through the gut of the animal in the form of an excretory product, the inner part will become exposed without the seed coat, therefore it will easily germinate. So that is how they have a mutualistic relationship with each other. Say for example, the bees, if they have to help the plants, then the plants need to give them some fees or for the services that the bees are rendering, and also the plants have to offer either reward or fees in the form of pollen and nectar for pollinators, and also they provide some juicy and nutrition fruits for seed dispersers. So as I told you, so why do the bees visit the flower? They know that the flower has nectars, right? So nectar is nothing but a form of sugary content which is needed for the bees, right? Or any of the other pollinator, be it the ant or the butterfly or whatever. So they in turn visit the flowers in order to feed on the nectar, and when they sit on the flower, the pollen grains which have come out of the anthers or which have died from the anthers, they actually stick onto the body of the insects, and when the insect visits another flower to feed on the nectar, these pollen grains get dusted onto the stigma of the female flower, and therefore that is the pollination would have been completed. Then the fertilization process will get completed and the setting of seeds will occur. Now these seeds has to be dispersed. Now what happens? The ovule will form the seeds, the ovary will form the fruits, right? So the fruits are preferred by most of the animals as food. So when these animals, say for example squirrels, so squirrels, they'll feed on the fruit and they will take it somewhere and all, right? So they will disperse and they will throw off the seed. Only the pulpy part will be eaten and the seeds will be thrown. So wherever the seeds fall, there they will get germinated in that particular ground if the condition is favorable. And not just that, I also told you some seeds only germinate if they pass through the gut of the intestine of few of the animals. So that is how both here the plant also gets benefited as well as the animals also get benefited. So in many species of fig tree, so fig tree is also one of the best example where we can see mutualism. So whenever you cut a fruit of the fig, that is the fresh fruit, you can see some that is larvae inside that. So how did that larvae actually come into the fig fruit? It is because of the wasp. So in many species of fig trees, there is a tight one-to-one relationship between the pollinator species of wasp and between the fig. So there is a mutualistic relationship between the fig fruit and the wasp. So here, the fig species can only be pollinated if its partner, the wasp species, is present, and it cannot be pollinated by any of the other species. So inside the fig fruit, if the seeds have to set, then pollination has to occur, right? And if pollination has to occur, the fig can only depend on the wasp and no other animal can help in the pollination of the fig. So you can see the wasp here, which is pollinating the fig. So these wasps, what they do is, the female wasp, they use the fruit not only as an oviposition, that is as an egg laying site. So these female wasps, they will visit the fig fruit and they will deposit their eggs in the fig fruit. Now, when the eggs hatch and the larvae come out, the larvae will help in the setting of the seeds, and in turn, the pulpy part of the fig fruit will provide some amount of nutrition to the larvae, and also the seeds. Some of the seeds are also, because inside the fig fruit, hundreds of seeds will be present. So, few of the seeds if the larvae eat, it is not a big matter there. So, that is why the seeds, so the developing seeds within the fruit also provides nourishment for the larvae of the wasp. So the wasp pollinates the fig's inflorescence while searching for suitable egg-laying site. So when it finds a suitable egg-laying site, that is the fig fruit, in the fig fruit itself, the inflorescence will be there. So in the fig fruit, the wasps will pollinate. So once the wasps enter into the fig fruit, they will pollinate. And in turn, the fig fruit provides nutrition for the larvae. So in turn, for the favor of pollination, the fig offers the wasps some of its developing seeds as food for the developing wasp larvae. So this is how they actually undergo mutualism. So mutualism between the wasp and the fig can be seen here. So this was about mutualism, one of the best examples for the mutualism which can be seen between the wasp and the fig fruit. So next, talking about one more example, that is orchids. So orchids, they are quite brightly colored and they are beautiful to look at. But the drawback in orchid is, orchid doesn't produce any smell, and the orchid flowers do not produce nectars. So when both the things are not there, why will an insect come and visit it? If nectar is not there, obviously the orchid will not provide any food for the insect. So why will they come and visit? So orchids are such plants which have a variety or diversity of floral patterns mimicking other animals. So many of which have evolved to attract the right pollinator insect. Say for example, the bees and the bumblebees, and therefore ensuring that guaranteed pollination will occur. And not all orchids offer rewards. So earlier we understood that the flowers offers the insect rewards in the form of nectar. That is why insects come and visit the flower, therefore helping in pollination. But in this particular case, orchids do not offer any reward in the form of nectar. Then why will the insect visit, or how will the pollination occur in the orchid? So here, one of the best example that we can take here is of the orchid, that is a Mediterranean orchid, which is called as Ophias. So this Ophias, actually it employs a sexual deceit to get pollinated by the bee species. So if you look at the Ophias orchid, you can see it looks like a bee, right? Just see this portion. It almost looks like a bee. So the male bee will think that it is the female bee sitting on the flower and it will come for copulation or for mating. So this is called as pseudo copulation. Why it is called as pseudo? Because it is not actually a female bee, but it is just looking like a bee. A part of the orchid is looking like a bee. Because of mating occurring with the pseudo female bee, that is why it is called as pseudo copulation. So one petal of its flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female bee in case of size, in case of color, and also in the terms of marking. Almost when we even see it, suddenly we feel as if it is a bee, right? So that is how. So the male bee gets attracted towards the flower thinking that it is a female and it pseudo copulates with that. So when it pseudo copulates, what happens? All the pollen grains that are produced on the anther will stick onto the body of the bee, and the bee will visit another flower again thinking that it is a female bee sitting there and it will pseudo copulate. And in that flower, it would have dusted all the pollen grains, therefore promoting the pollination in the orchid flower. So the next flower will get dusted with the pollen, and when the same bee pseudo copulates with another flower, it will transfer the pollen to the other flower as well. Therefore, pollinates the flower in this particular way. So therefore, this is one of the best example wherein an orchid, that is a Mediterranean orchid which is called as Ophrys, which mimics itself as a female bee, therefore attracting the male bee in order to help facilitate pollination. So this is also one of the best example for mutualism, and it is a kind of pseudo copulation that occurs here. So this was about this particular session wherein we studied about mutualism and commensalism. So I hope you understood this session as well as the whole chapter, and we shall meet again in the coming sessions with a new chapter. Thank you.